apologize. But I'm Teresa Cameron, and I'm here to talk about psychic abilities, intuitive, and connection to source, and kind of how that all ties together, how it may apply to you, how you can use it in your own lives to kind of move forward, expand, grow. And so how many of you here think that you have psychic abilities? Excellent. And how many of you think you're kind of intuitive? You get those instincts, yeah. But everybody can put their hand up, every one of you. It's something that we all have. The universe around us is all energy. And the only thing is psychic abilities, intuitive abilities, connections to other people, ourselves, to source. It's all about interpreting and understanding that energy. So it's a language. And intuitive abilities, to me, how I see it, is we're born with them. Animals have them, plants have them, everything in the universe is part of that energetic kind of grid. And when we start understanding that, hey, wait a minute, I already interpret. We all do. We just aren't necessarily conscious of it. So on a very subconscious level, you're getting information. You walk into a room and your energy connects and scans and gives you back information instantly. So if you're empathic, and a lot of you are, I'm sure, and what that is you feel what other people feel. So if you're extremely sensitive to that, and you haven't, most of us don't get the instruction manual with these abilities. So you walk into a room, and you might have been feeling wonderful just before, and you walk in and go, oh my goodness, I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm getting a little upset. I think I'm going to leave. What's happened is you've hit a wall and you're being bombarded with mass amounts of information, but you aren't quite sure how to interpret it. And so you internalize it. And what happens when you're empathic, and just about everybody is at varying degrees. Now, some people are extremely sensitive, and they may suffer from anxiety on a continuous basis. I work with a lot of kids, teenagers, that have a really hard time going to school because they walk into this big, massive ball of teenage hormones and emotions and problems, and it's so heightened, and they're so sensitive, and then they feel that it's all them. So they start to withdraw, and they get anxious, and they start having problems like depression, etc. And in reality, if we start learning how to interpret the energy and just understand that it is information, that we all can get it, it's like having, if you're really sensitive, and I know there's a few of you in the room because I can feel you, it's like being a big radio tower. And instead of being able to fine-tune what you're bringing in, you get it all. So it's just a massive load of information. The beautiful thing is that we can all start kind of stepping back from that, start interpreting what that energy means. And for some people, you may be already very clairvoyant or clairaudient. Maybe you just have a deep knowing. And some of you, it's very much an emotional sensation. But when we're not given the kind of the instructions of how to work it, how to understand it, how to interpret it, it can be very, very overwhelming. So for myself, what my gift is really I connect to pure source, and I share that frequency with you. What that does is it helps you to raise your own frequency. It brings you into a space where kind of the debris can fall away. The filters can go on so that that massive amount of stuff can actually start making sense. You can pick up what's important to you, what's meant for you, or what's meant for you to share with other people. You know, a lot of times when you're sensitive, you're actually unknowingly giving information to friends and family, that you're sensitive enough to get those thoughts or the message and verbalize it without really kind of understanding where it's coming from. Now, for people who work with their gifts and have kind of learned the language and they're growing into it and they're expanding the possibilities, because that's really what it is. We're all right now very much expanding the possibilities of who we are and what we're able to kind of interpret and understand ourselves. Whether it's for ourselves or for other people, it doesn't really matter, but it is an opening. And as soon as you come into contact with somebody, the possibility is open for you, because if you don't know about it beforehand, so for example, myself, I've always been very intuitive, very sensitive. I always knew that there was more. I always saw angels when I was young. I always knew what people were feeling, what people were thinking, but I didn't think it was anything special. You know, I'd get very distinct messages, and I'd have absolute knowings. And some of them very, very profound. But again, it was just part of me. It wasn't something that I felt was to be shared with other people. Nobody else I knew had gifts. My parents knew I was sensitive, but we didn't really talk about it. It wasn't something that was, you know, kind of out there. But when, I'm going to say about 4.5 years ago, I went to meditation for the first time. And what happened to me was, first off, I'd gone to the meditation class for somebody else. I figured, oh yeah, that person would really benefit from meditation, and I'm going to go too, because I don't think she'll go without me. And wow, you know, the joke was kind of on me. I sat down for my first meditation and literally felt this huge opening of energy kind of rushing through me, and I felt excessively compelled to share it with other people. I thought everybody got that. I didn't realize it was, you know, it felt beautiful, and I couldn't wait to meditate again. And I was doing a 1-week meditation class with a wonderful lady. And the more I did it, the more information I started getting, the more my gifts started activating and opening, and the more I felt I needed to share this energy. So I started kind of sharing it with the person sitting next to me, sharing it with the person across from me. And the person I'd gone with was a very fidgety meditator. She couldn't settle down. So I'd start sharing the energy, and she'd calm right down. And then I'd pull it back, and she'd start fidgeting again. And I'm like, am I doing that? Am I helping her? So I started asking her, and she's like, I can tell when you're doing it. I can feel it. And, you know, that kind of blew my mind. So I was asking the lady who was teaching the meditation. She had no idea. She said, I can feel a huge energy around you, a huge power, but I don't really know what that is. And so that took me on a journey of trying to figure that out. So yes, I was always very intuitive and very sensitive. And I mean, my daughter's the redhead over here. She can attest to, yeah, Mom would come out with some pretty strange things, but everybody always listened when I did. But I started feeling, and I can remember it was not easy, being in tears after being awoken in the middle of the night, being told that it was time that I shared my gifts, and saying to my husband, but I don't even know what that is, and I don't know what it means, but I know I have to do this. And it was very emotional for me. But it had been my intention to open up and allow what came as it was meant to. Didn't mean I didn't get impatient, for those of you that are on this journey and really wanting to share your gifts. I got very impatient at times. But I will say that the more impatient you get with the journey and with yourself, the more we're trying to kind of direct it into our own idea of completeness, our own idea of control. And really, we have to let that go and let it evolve as it's meant to. Because if we start directing where it's supposed to go, it's our vision. We're human. We have a very limited reality for ourselves. Now, this journey of spiritual awakening, of connecting to your own intuitive abilities, connecting to Source, is very much about growing and expanding your reality, your possibilities, letting go of the story that you've been running for your life. And we all do it. We're human. We have the story of who we are, where we were born, who our parents are, what country we're born into, what religion we may be from, what school we go to. Our beliefs come from that. And the story that is our life comes from that. But as soon as we start kind of allowing growth and expansion, those possibilities, those stories kind of start falling away and our reality can start expanding, you have more room to move, more room to allow, more room to interpret. And it actually starts triggering your abilities. And again, we all have them, but very, very rarely do we use them with intention. I mean, they can come flashing in and you may get an absolute vision or knowing that something's going to happen to somebody, or somebody needs to be taking a certain direction, or you need to be taking a certain direction. But it may not come when you're sitting there going, please, anything, I need to know the answer to what I'm supposed to be doing. Very rarely will it show up in a way for you when we're really in that space. But the message is coming. It's just we tend to get impatient. We want it to come with this nice big booming voice in our ear saying, no, that's the wrong way. Turn left, not right. Usually we'll have a sense or a feeling that we're supposed to turn left. And we go, oh, I think I'm supposed to turn left, but turn right anyways. Yeah, so we end up with, okay, a little further down the road, I knew the answer to that. I knew I was supposed to turn left, and I turned right. What the heck was I thinking? But do know that when that happens, there was a lesson to be learned there. We were meant to take that right turn because we needed the information that we were going to pick up along the way. Now, intuitive abilities. You know, so many people are feeling really, really drawn to share. They don't know what they have to share. They don't know why they're supposed to share it, but they're feeling a calling. And I have to say I was one of them. I definitely felt that calling. And it was a space of very much, I knew that something was missing. I knew that I was meant to do something. I had no idea what that was. And then I stumbled upon meditation. So I'm not going to say that it was an overnight epiphany, because it certainly wasn't. It took time. It took dedication. And it took a willingness to learn. So being intuitive, being sensitive, being open to Source and how things may flow for you, when it comes to day-to-day life, we can get very caught in our reality, and we forget to meditate, we forget to pray, we forget to connect, or we don't necessarily listen when we do get the messages, and that's a big one. You know, we tend to get so busy directing what we're doing, how we're doing it, how far we're going to go. You know, today's society is very much like a race. How busy can you be? How much can you accomplish? How far can you go? How much can you make? How many friends can you have? How on and on and on and on and on. And this journey of, I'll say, connecting to Source, this spiritual awakening, is very much about slowing that down, giving yourself room to be quiet, and going within, because all of us have those answers within us. If we give ourselves time, space, and quiet enough to hear. So, you know, my first meditation class, I'd never given myself that space to just be quiet. I had a very busy life. You know, my husband and I are business owners. We always busy, 3 kids, always running around to different sporting events. You know, it was a busy life. And I'd never taken the time to be quiet enough to even understand that I was getting a lot more than I realized. So as my own realizations came about of what my abilities were and how deep they went, I realized that I'd used those gifts my entire life, but I didn't realize I was using them. I wasn't using them with intention. They were just there. And when I started coming to that deeper realization about what they were, how to use them, how to share them, I kind of took a step back from using them, because I realized that I used them on my family all the time. Now, being a healer, I was always, making sure everybody, it always would just come to me. Well, you need to see this doctor, or you need to take that vitamin, or you have to eat this food. It was just always there. And so I was always busy sharing that. But I didn't realize it was a gift I had. So when I started actually sharing it with clients, I felt that I had to step back from friends and family, because it's like, oh my God, I was doing this my whole life, and boy, that wasn't very nice of me to feel like I had to impose that on them. And then it was a kind of a shuffling and toning down of, you know what, it's meant for everybody, including me. So allowing that to flow. So for those of you who are energetically sensitive, you may be feeling the energy of that pure source connection. It's very balancing, very harmonizing. But for some people, it can be, you may feel like tingly, you may feel hot, you may feel like surges of energy going through. And that's very much the frequency that I share with people. So even if I didn't say a word and just allowed this energy to flow, it would still be shifting and balancing and letting you let go of blocks. Some of you will probably feel it in the days to come. Some of you may have a little bit of a detox as you kind of let go of things that are really stuck. And when I'm working with clients, I shift energy in all sorts of different ways. Now, when somebody's in front of me or on the phone, I do a lot of phone sessions, I tap into the energetic beings. So I see the kind of an arm's length out spirit space, I call it. It houses your physical body, your emotional body. And in that space is kind of where I tap into to get the information about you. And it can be all sorts of different things. Now, people can ask questions and I can very much tap in for the answer. But when I'm working with somebody brand new, I really like to just tap in and see what comes and what comes first, because usually that's what your spirit is asking for help with. It's asking to be cleared. And, on that spiritual level, which most of us aren't really that aware of, we're very, very connected. We're very in tune. Our higher self, so to speak, really knows what needs shifted, what needs cleared, what needs healed. And when you're working on that spirit space, it's kind of an outer housing or an outer shell. As that comes more into harmony, more into balance, the physical, the emotional, the mental all starts shifting and coming into balance as well. So it starts clearing. You may feel lighter. You may feel like things are flowing for you. A lot of people will say to me, I'm really stuck and I can't seem to make money, or I can't seem to have a relationship. Well, there's something in your resonance that keeps you in that space. And oftentimes it's really not, it's a subconscious thing, or it's an unconscious thing. It could easily be a family lineage pattern that you're running and not even able to recognize it because everybody that you grew up with had it. It could be something that is through past lives and we've pulled it through with us. And that's really not that uncommon. But again, it's kind of what your spirit is standing up and saying, okay, we've got this. Let's get this going. Let's get this moving. And it may just be that that's the trigger for you to kind of really move into your own strength, your own power. So many people who are intuitive, who have psychic abilities, really, really doubt themselves. That space of that knowing, well, am I making it up? Is this something that is, it's a great story, but oh boy. The thing is don't be shy about sharing it. Don't be afraid of being wrong, because you may just find that you're actually way more right than you realize. And it's that space of acknowledging that you are actually getting something valid that could profoundly affect somebody. Will be your validation that you're not really crazy. It's not really all in your head. It's not being made up. Now, there's times when I sit with people who are very good at defense. So they'll try and, on a spirit level, okay, yeah, don't pay attention there. My foot hurts. Yeah, I think it's my knee. But yet in reality, they're so kind of in a defensive mode, and they've learned that their entire lives, sometimes many lifetimes, to misdirect. So somebody can be sitting there, and everybody around them will feel, oh, what a wonderful person, but they're only seeing the surface. They're not allowing people in behind that. And it's kind of tearing down those walls so that your true self can come through. And we all do it. We all kind of project. We all decide what it is that's important. And we tend to put that out there first without kind of coming from the heart. So when you're on your spiritual journey, it is very much about going inwards. It's not just about connecting to Source. It's not just about being able to hear angels or guides. It's not just about sharing with others. But boy, oh boy, it's a journey inwards. And you have to be kind of willing to experience and allow what that may be. Now, sometimes, if you're asking for that awakening process, sometimes it comes in ways, we've all heard stories where somebody's had a distinct illness or a trauma, or they've lost somebody very close to them, and all of a sudden they have this awakening, this understanding, and it's like the blinders come off, and they see things differently, they experience things differently, they live much more from their heart space. I mean, we all have that ability, all of us. We don't have to go through traumas to get there. We don't have to have our lives fall apart to get there. But some of us, we do. It's like we need a 2x4 to the side of the head to actually go, oh, hey, wait a minute. Okay, I get it now. But you can start this journey just by connecting to Pure Source and making your attention to grow and expand. And things will start shifting. Being willing to see things a little differently. Moving from being reactive to everything to responding. Looking and feeling instead of those old patterns coming up. Now, when we're living our lives, those patterns they're very ingrained in us from childhood. And especially if we've had a trauma or an abuse or, lost a parent, something big when you're a kid, that those patterns just zip right in there and they stay. So as we get older, even though we may be in our 40s or 50s or 60s or 80s, something can trigger us that takes us back to being 5. And that's how we react to things. So start recognizing patterns. Now those are extreme cases, of course, and we all do it. We're all human. But starting to be aware, starting to pay attention. If you're in a situation where everybody annoys me. I can't, nobody's getting this. It's probably there's something in you that's triggering, and there's something you're meant to look at. If you're surrounded in people that are unkind, or you're surrounded in people that take advantage, what is it in you that's resonating in that frequency? Now, you may never know that, but recognize that that's probably what's happening. There's a frequency in you, you're resonating there, so you're attracting it. You can let that go. We can clear that. So, does anybody have any questions? I mean, this is... Oh, dead silence. Okay. Yes?
You were talking about how you have to learn to trust yourself in these things.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Okay. Well, I will say, just a quick story. When I was 13, now I was extremely sensitive, and I can tell you exactly where this happened, but I had heard that if you hear voices in your head, you're schizophrenic. And so I'm walking to school by myself, and I'm hearing like this party going on in my head. I couldn't hear exactly what was being said, but it sounded like I was in the middle of this big party. Well, I now realize I was actually going through an opening process, but I got scared, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I must be schizophrenic. I'm hearing voices in my head. You need to be quiet. And they did. And I really, really missed that for quite a long time. How do you trust yourself? Well, you know, most of us are meant to share. So if you get something, a vision, and it involves somebody else, tell somebody. And, you know, the more you share, the more you'll get, the more validation you'll have. When I had an angel come to me and say, it's time you understood who you are, and it's time you shared. And I stood in front of her saying, no, I don't know what that is. How do I do that? What is it? And she looked at me and said, you know. Wow, that's helpful. And I just thought, okay, well, the only thing that I absolutely know is I love meditation. So I started sharing meditation. And that was a tough one for me because, you know, where I live, I'm a businesswoman. I've been a businesswoman since I was 20. Everybody knows me that way. All of a sudden I'm saying, hey, I see dead people. You know, I was a little nervous, to say the least, and I figured I was really worried about being judged. But the thing is from experience, I can say that the more confident and secure and strong I am in myself, the more and more people believe. And it's easy to not believe yourself, but if you're not believing yourself, others won't believe you either. And my beautiful assistant here was at my very first meditation, and she's been with me ever since. Yes, you have a question?
It was just kind of a comment. I just felt a lot when she said that. The biggest thing is to stop second-guessing yourself.
Yes.
I feel like, and to go from your heart space and your stomach, because that's where we gather all of our information, and then it goes to our mind. And so that's where the process that gets misconstrued a lot, and then we overthink things that we actually know deep inside of ourselves before they get the chance to travel up to
Exactly.
our mind space.
Yeah.
And then those get crossed and mixed signals, and that's where we start overthinking about everything we actually already know. So if you just go with your heart and go with your gut, just listen to that, and it will never serve you wrong.
Well, I will add a little preface to that. It can serve you wrong because it depends where you're resonating. If you're very stuck in your heart space, or you're very stuck in your solar plexus or your belly, things can get jammed up in there, and we may be looking at it from a kind of a skewed or distorted perspective. So, you know, if you resonate in a space where, say you grew up with an alcoholic parent, and you're resonating in a space where that feels comfortable for you, when you're looking for a spouse, you may resonate with having somebody who drinks, because that's where you grew up resonating. So you want to be able to be aware of that and be able to clear that so that you can then go from your heart space with a partner who resonates in a very healthy way, rather than one that may be distorted because you were distorted in that way. And that's going deeper, and that's figuring out, and that's allowing yourself to, there's some truths in there that may hurt, but that's okay. That's where we get to grow. Yes?
I want to ask you, you grew up being aware of this somewhat when you were a child,
Yes.
and I'm wondering if you can give any hints or information on how to help children
Yes.
develop those qualities that they already have. My own experience, it was like because only very, very rare adults would actually validate what I was experiencing. That I didn't keep, because it wasn't socially important to be able to see off.
Well, it wasn't socially important or accepted even in a lot of cases, yeah.
Then it diminished over time.
Yes.
because of that.
Well, yes. I love working with children, and I do actually work with a lot of sensitive children, because a lot of sensitive children are born to parents who never learnt their own gifts. So typically, that somebody who's sensitive is born into a sensitive family, but they may be cut off from that. Religion can really do that as well. A lot of, especially Catholic religions, there's a lot of suppression and fear. So people tend to cut that part of themselves off, and yet that connection to source is beautiful. It doesn't matter, what religion or how you're doing that, so long as that's that pure space. But kids, I love working with kids. Kids are so sensitive and pure, and I've got 3 new granddaughters. One's a month, one's 8 months, and one's just about 4. And all of them are excessively bright. And I'm really looking forward to having the ability to be open so that they can be open. And my daughter and my 2 sons are all extremely intuitive, extremely sensitive. But again, they were adults when I started really stepping into my space. But my daughter's very gifted, and she's been doing sessions at the booth as well. But my granddaughters, it's if we start telling them what they see or what they feel or they experience is wrong or bad, or we don't believe, it automatically starts dimming their own connection. It dims their belief in themselves. It dims the reality of what they're seeing. Now, there's so many children these days that are being born extremely connected and very light, and they're seeing and understanding and perceiving things differently than we've all kind of grown to know. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. In fact, I get fascinated because when I tap into people, I can see how they see. So when I tap into children, autistic children, for example, we see things head on. They see things from 100 different angles, and how fascinating and how brilliant and how wonderful that would be. But we look at them as damaged. So, instead of that, maybe embracing their uniqueness and embracing a really, I know in a lot of cases, it's hard for them to verbalize because there aren't words. We don't have the vocabulary yet, but it's coming. And that's the thing, it is coming. But when you can't, we're human. We like labels. We like to have things fit into certain slots. We like to have things cut and dried, and we like to be able to analyze our way through. If we don't have the vocabulary for that, it's very hard to connect it in our head. So we reject what's different. Tend to. Not always, but tend to. Or we get fearful of it. The beautiful thing is I've had a lot of parents come to me and say, my child's sensitive. They're really having nightmares, or they're having night terrors, or they're having problems adjusting, or it's like they've got this, they tell me they can hear buzzing, or they can hear like acute hearing and stuff, and those are all gifts. But parents, of course, they don't have the instruction manual. So how do you deal with that? The biggest thing is being 100% okay with where they are and what they're seeing. My oldest son, he always saw, he always had friends. I could feel them, but I couldn't see them, which was good because I never dismissed him or them. but being dismissive or not acknowledging what it is that they're experiencing. Now, some of them just have really, really good imaginations, but some of them are actually seeing. They're actually going deeper. Now, some children, and this is really important, some children are extremely sensitive to emotion. Again, that empath. So if there's anything that's kind of out of resonance around them, whether it's mom and dad, grandparents, friends, they act that out because it feels like theirs. They may get aggressive, they may get angry for no reason. So you've got this child who all of a sudden is like this big booming energy. And what they're doing is they're shifting energy for people around them. Or they're, we've all walked into grocery stores and seen a kid throwing a temper tantrum. Well, probably that child's very sensitive to all of the bombardment of the lights and the sounds and the electrical currents. And it's, some are so sensitive that when they get close to a light socket, none of myself and my children, fluorescent lights are horrendous for us. And they can they make us feel like we're sick or dimmed down. Fluorescent bulbs are horrible. And children react to that. So do we, So if you're in a room and you've got this headache and it seems to persist and it won't go away, change your bulbs. Incandescents, I tell you, are the way to go. They're the most like natural sunlight, even though they're supposedly not that great for the environment. The rest of them are really not that great for us. So just being aware, all those different currents, all those different energies, all those different frequencies, again, it's all information, but we're like open beacons. We give and receive, and being very aware of what you're giving as well. So if you're living in your heart space and you're open to different possibilities and different people and different understandings, you're going to grow. You're going to get it back. You put something out. So right now, if each one of you just sent out a little love to the room, you're going to get it back how many multiple of times, right? And that, honestly, that is how it works. So connecting to source. I recommend, when I touch somebody, either remotely or physically, I can always tell if they pray or meditate. They have a lighter resonance. I can always tell. And one of my most favorite stories was I was at an expo, and this little Mexican lady came up. And she sat down. She just had the nicest, most open, beautiful energy. And I tapped into her, and I said, oh, my goodness. She was so light. And I said, wow, you have 100% faith. And I said, but you've never been given a validation. And she's like, no, but I absolutely believe. And I said, well, are you ready for your validation? She was surrounded in angels. They were so excited that I could verbalize the messages for her because they wanted me to thank her for her absolute unwavering faith her entire life. And I could tell she got it from her mom. And she was so light, resonating so high, and she was absolutely in tears because of the beauty of receiving those messages. She didn't need them because her faith wasn't going to waver. But it was just, again, a little bit intellectually, that yes, she got validation and a huge thank you. And there was a lot of messages from a lot of her family members that had passed that were just waiting. They were just like, oh, I'm so excited. And it was such a wonderful session. But to me, it was very profound because hands down, I knew that we all can be in that space if we're connecting. She prayed every morning. And another lady I had, she was very resonating very, very finely. And I said to her, wow, you must pray every day. And she said, oh, no, I don't. Okay, well, do you meditate? Do you connect to source? Well, I say a daily gratitude. Well, yes, you do. And guess what? you're getting that back. Oh my goodness. It is a finer frequency. So if you walk away with nothing today except connect, whether you pray to God, whether you connect to pure source or give thanks to divine or the light, whatever works. I mean, to me, it's all the same. But whatever works for you in your heart. And that's the thing. It's not from up here. It's from down here, just like that, right? It's a feeling. It's not a thought. And that thank you. It's not a thought. We always say the words. But what about if the next time you say those words, you actually feel them from your heart space? Somebody holds the door for you. Thank you from your heart. Somebody passes you the salt. Thank you from your heart. You connect to source. Thank you from your heart. It changes the resonance of you. And what you're giving out is very much more finely tuned and much more beautiful. Okay? So I think our time's up. The lady, she hasn't come to knock on the door, but I think we had 45 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.